Hello everybody, this is Chris Bird or MonkeyDude1313, and this is a truly complete master set of XY Phantom Forces. This set came out all the way back in 2014, officially 12 years ago now, and it is a beautiful set. We have all of the normals, all of the holos, all of the secret rares and full arts and reverses. They're all here in this video. This is one of our many master sets on our goal of collecting all of the English Pokemon TCG, and we are about 97% done with that goal. So if you're interested in seeing any other sets, definitely go to our channel, browse through it. I think you'll find a set that you'd enjoy watching. Back on Phantom Forces though, this set heavily features Gengar. So we have a little stack of Gengars here that I thought it would be fun to take a look at Gengar through time. Some of the more fun Gengars from our master sets. But we will get there when we get there. XY Phantom Forces, along with most XY sets, are very, very tiny. And one of the ways you can tell that is because in the first 9 cards, the first spread, we immediately get into the second type. We only have 8 grass cards in this entire set, 16 if you include reverses. So, very tiny sets. Easy, in air quotes, to master set compared to some of the modern sets that have 400. Both Black Bolt and White Flare on their own have 400 each, meaning if you combined the two as a single mini set, there's actually 800 cards. Not a very mini set anymore, but we're talking about Phantom Forces. The first fire type is Fletchinder. Why not Fletchling? He's a normal type in this set, so you'll get to see Fletchling when we get to the end. I'm going to relatively quickly go through the non-holos and normal holos so that we can get to the good stuff. But 4 total fire types. We saw the Fletchling on the previous page, or Fletchinder, sorry, on the previous page, and we're already at Talonflame and Pyro done. That's it. Very, very, very small sets. Got some cool for alligators and stuff here, but our very first EX is Manectric EX. This case is a half art. Looking a little bit derpy, but still a very cool Pokemon. And the first appearance of Mega Manectric EX, after he was announced and put into the games. Very, very cool here. I have a feeling you'll be seeing this art again in this video, so keep that in mind. But another thing to mention is the meta at this time. This set drastically changed the meta because of Night March. I'll show you it on this Joltik, but it is represented on other cards in this set. Night March. This attack does 20 damage times the number of Pokemon in your discard pile that have the Night March attack. There happened to be quite a few of those, and so there was a card called Battle Compressor. You'd play it with this Joltik and the other Night March Pokemon, and for a bunch of really tiny, really easy energy requirement 1 prize attackers, you could be doing significant, if not lethal damage to 2 prize Pokemon. Very annoying in Standard, very annoying in Expanded, and it was one of my most hated decks to face back at the time, especially when I was playing Volcanion. But that is okay. So, we'll keep going through the non-holos here. We're into the Psychics already, and we get our first view at the first 2 Gengars from the set. Typical half-art Gengar, you know, you'd expect it to be $5 to $10, maybe 15 for a good day. This guy is like 5 or 6 times that. So, very, very, very valuable card, even though it's just a half-art from Phantom Forces. But still, absolutely beautiful. I really like, in all of these Gengar arts, you'll see that the eyes are red and holographic, and so you can make some really cool turnarounds on these on camera. Alright, and right after it is the Mega Gengar EX half art. Similar to the Mega Manectric EX, you're also going to see this art twice later in this video. So keep this one in mind as well. But this art is absolutely wonderful, and a very, very cool depiction of Gengar, which, you know, a lot of people are Gengar fans, so it would make sense that people really like this guy. Alright, Night March on this Pumpkaboo, Night March on Lampent. There's 2 more that you can throw in that deck, discard, and now you have done a bunch more damage using your Night March. Fun! Of course, you'd prefer to attack with Joltik because it takes a DCE. Both of these, or double colorless energy, sorry, but both of these, either you need to evolve into this one, which no one ever did, or this one takes 3 energies, but, you know, if needed, you would do that. Alright, continuing on, we see that this page has a couple of half arts. I'm going to skip the Malamar for now because we'll get to a cooler one a little bit later, but I'll pull out the Dialga EX half art. Not only because he's a legendary Pokemon that a lot of people like, but because we have a fancy special version of this card at the end. And so I'd like to bring a little bit of attention to it and a little bit of fun and something to look forward to in a bit. All right, keep it on. After one more flip, we see Aegislash and Florges. Florges. It's a big flower. Very cool Pokemon. I really like Aegislash. He's very neat, especially with his ability to switch stances, which, luckily, in ZA, they kept his ability to switch stances despite all Pokemon not having abilities anymore. So he didn't get completely ruined by the new change with no abilities. Alright, so next flip, we get to the end of the colorless Pokemon. There's a Fletchling that I had mentioned earlier, and we get into the trainers. Normally I don't pull out these non-holo trainers, but this is the battle compressor I was talking about earlier. Search your deck for 3 cards and discard them. So, search your deck for 3 Lampent with Night March and discard them, making your Joltik for 1 DCE do an extra 60 damage. Why not? Fantastic. There was also Skyla at the time, so you could look for that. There's a bunch of ways to pull that card out. Very, very good. Alright. Each Psychic Pokemon's attacks, both yours and your opponents, cost 1 colorless less. So now that Pumpkaboo only needs a DCE. Love it. Alright, so this set featured 2 special item cards here. This was after the first round of A-Specs and before the second round of A-Specs, but we had these Team Flare Hyper Gear cards. I don't think they were all that playable, but they were still very cool. I absolutely love the completely change in style to the red border and the big flare stamp here. I think that is very, very cool. The second one of those is Jamming Net. Another very cool card. You can only have one of these in your deck as far as I know. Actually, they don't say you can't. So, yeah. Anyway, very cool. Very cool. Very, very cool. Lysander's Trump card. I'm going to talk about this a little bit too much when we get to its full art version, which is just one flip away to the grand reveal number 1 of this set. So we finish all the trainers off, Mystery Energy, Trick Coin, Professor Sycamore, who's always present, all the professors, and we get to the full art, these first 5. So I'm going to pull each of these out one by one and we can take a nice look. So, Manectric, absolutely beautiful card. You can see here that there's a couple of horizontal lines there. That is just part of the printing process back at the time. You can find copies that don't have any of those lines on it, but it's not that easy. And so people who are really pining for that PSA 10 wouldn't be thrilled with a card like this, but we just like to collect raw, and so this is absolutely perfect for us. And bonus, we pulled this back when the set was out, so it was a set card that we did not need to go out and find recently. The big one, going in order, Balloon Gengar, Fat Gengar, Big Gengar, whatever you want to call it. This card is glorious. This card is hyper expensive, and no one is surprised. It's a Gengar exclusive card. This art was never reused anywhere else. The texture is fantastic. Absolutely love it. Very, very nice. We got this from DGen Collectibles maybe 4 or 5 months ago, and we worked out a nice deal for that then. Moving right along, we have a full art Malamar EX. I promised you a better Malamar later, and here you go. So this Malamar is very cool as well, and I don't really have too much to say about it. We found this at a card show about an hour drive from our house. We found it for a nice $25 or something, but very cool card. Alright, Florges EX. My little story about this is that I actually own 2 of these, and one of them, heavily played, I intentionally bought so that I could test out how cleaning works on these full art textured cards. And so this one is in very, very nice condition. The other one I have is quite beat up and has had some testing done to it. But overall, I really like the deep textures on these XY era full arts. Alright, our first full art trainer is AZ. If you were not around at the time, you'll probably remember AZ from the recent game Legends ZA, where we get to hang out with AZ and do a bunch of cool stuff. I'm not going to give any spoilers on those, so I'm not going to talk too much more about him. But this guy is 3,000 years old, and there's a bunch of stuff going down in Lumiose City, both back in the XY games and in Legends ZA, that if you're at all interested in Pokemon lore, this will really scratch an itch for you. So if you don't know the XY lores, I highly recommend you go check those out. Alright, our second and arguably grandest reveal of this set takes us to the rest of the full arts, the secret rares, and then some alternate art full arts. I would love to get to some of these fancy ones, but we got to go in order, and I got to rant a little bit about Lysander's Trump card. This card absolutely broke the game to the point where it was banned. You can only play 1 supporter a turn, that totally didn't help, but its effect here says each player shuffles all cards in his or her discard pile into his or her deck. I wonder if they made this with the intent on stopping Night March from working so well, or I don't really know what they were thinking when they made this card, but this card was absolutely broken, and they had to ban it from the TCG. So there was a lot of times where my friends and I would allow us to play with it, even though it was banned, and we very quickly and easily learned why it was banned. Lysander's trump card, though. Beautiful card, very cool character, and absolutely broken effect. All right, on the flip side, we have Xerosic. Xerosic is supposed to be more of a minor character in the XY plot, but he ended up playing a really big part. And again, I don't want to spoil it for everyone who hasn't... I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't played those games, but you will learn a lot more about him as you approach the middle of the XY base games. All right, so that was the last card from the normal set. Now we have 3 secret rares, even though these 2 look exactly the same as the ones from earlier in the set. Let me pull out the Manectric EX first. Secret Rare Manectric EX, you can tell because it has the golden border rather than the typical half-art border. The Japanese text, which say Turbo Bolt in Japanese, are gold instead of just whatever the normal transparent colors were, or slightly transparent colors were on the other copy, or by looking at the number down here. So this was a trend that they did for a couple of sets in the XY era, very notably on the Mega Charizards from XY Flashfire. And I'm really looking forward to showing you guys that set. That set is beautiful. But this is the second Mega Manectric EX in the set, and they both have the same art, essentially. Alrighty, Gengar EX. Mega Gengar, secret rare, similar to that Manectric, gold text, gold border, and the number indicates that it is a secret rare instead of a normal half-art Mega Gengar. This guy is stupid expensive right now, but our copy is in great quality, and I'm very, very happy about that. So this is actually where I wanted to take our slight detour and to start talking about other Gengars. So we actually got a third printing of this same art, essentially. You know how I was talking about the gold text versus the non-gold text, basically the same art. Well, we got a third copy of this in the XY promos. So let's pull out our Gengar Through the Ages stack, and we can talk about some other beautiful Gengar cards before we get to that third Mega Gengar. So I didn't pull out every Gengar, even though we have them all. I pulled out just some of the more fancy ones and a few that I particularly like. So from Gym Heroes, way back when, Sabrina's Gengar First Edition, beautiful swirl right here, as you can tell, but this was one of the first printings of Gengar. Of course, the actual first was back in Fossil, the third set ever made. All right, moving on from that, we have Gengar EX from Fire Red Leaf Green. Another fantastic card, a chase card for a lot of Gengar collectors. This guy came out in an era where these silver-bordered EXs ran rampant, and many sets had up to 10 of them. Beautiful card, beautiful depiction of Gengar. I quite like it. Fun fact, this is one of the first cards that Mitsuhiro Arita did when he was learning his, I should say, I assume, when he was getting into the 3D modeling of Pokemon cards. He had a very distinct, very obviously hand-drawn style, and then just suddenly, for a couple of sets, he started doing these more rendered Pokemon arts, and I assume that he started using some rendering software. Luckily, he did a mix of both hand-drawn and rendered, and I don't know exactly where that ended, but that's a fun fact about this Gengar. Next up, Gengar Level X from Platinum Arceus. Another quite sought-after card. Again, like I mentioned earlier, the eyes glow red, which is a very, very, very cool. And this is one of the rare types of cards from the Diamond, Pearl, Platinum era that people really look out for, is these Level Xs, which are the equivalent of EXs. Next up, we have Gengar Prime. Gengar Prime is from one of the Heart Gold, Soul Silver sets, where primes were a very real thing. And something that was interesting about primes is that if a cute or otherwise cuddly, happy Pokemon got a prime, it was angry. They drew it angry because it's supposed to be aggressive and violent, and Gengar already did, so they didn't really need to do much for it. Something interesting to point out about this specific copy, we have a little ink error there on its tooth. So this is not something raised, this is not something removed, that is what I'm assuming is a print error, that little extra dot of ink there. Next up, we come to the point of the Gengar stack, which is that exact same Gengar art, well, not actually exact same, but you know, close enough, Very similar idea, like I was saying. You didn't get the full gold text because it wasn't technically a secret rare. You don't get the gold border, but you do get the shiny version of Mega Gengar, and he's looking the other direction. So essentially the third time that art was used. Many would argue that it's different art, but close enough for me. I think people would get those two cards confused all the time if this one weren't white. All right, so moving on. Gengar and Mimikyu GX Tag Team Half Art. I couldn't decide whether to feature this one or the alternate art, so I just pulled out both. This card, absolutely beautiful, half art from the Sun Moon era, and then this is the second chasiest chase from Team Up right after the Lovebirds. Absolutely love this art. All right, we're getting to the end of this. Gengar VMAX from a more recent set, Fusion Strike. Absolutely beautiful card. Very, very happy we were able to pull this rather than having to buy it. And the last one, and the least exciting one, is the $1 half art from Phantasmal Flames. Let's go. We survived past a bunch of very expensive Gengars to get to the most recent $1 one. However, we're getting the other versions of this Mega Gengar in the next two sets. Our mini set, which I think is called Ascended Heroes, and then in the next major set, I think, which is Nihil Zero. At least that's the JP name, something like that. Either way, there's a little bit of a history of Gengars. Got to show off the XY promo Mega Gengar EX. It's white, and we will put this Mega Gengar back in the binder. So you may recall earlier in the video, I brought out the Dialga EX half art and said we have a fancier version later, but I wanted you guys to keep it in mind. Well, this is the fancier version from later. The full silver Dialga EX. Secret rare. Absolutely wonderful card. DPM is trying to collect a bunch of these, and it is no surprise that this card is worth quite a lot. Absolutely beautiful card. This card is worth about $1,200 in near mint right now. And again, I can see why. You know, there's a lot of mystique around legendaries, and these one tone actually, high texture secret rares, very, very, very cool. I don't have too much else to say about it aside from that. We got this one from Remington TCG here in San Jose about 6 months ago. 6 months ago. We got that and a few other cards from them in a nice big deal. So very cool there. Very cool. Shout out to Remington. And these two cards are not in the set at all. These two cards cannot be pulled out of the packs. So why are they in the binder? Well, both of these are full art textured versions of cards that never got full art textured versions of them. And these were from a short-lived era where they would put a big A on the bottom of the card and call them alternate art promos. So you can still see it as the Phantom Forces set, but it has 24A instead of just 24 because the card in the Phantom Forces set was 24 out of 119. So they made an alternate art, which is a reprint of it exactly, just with different art. So it's 24A out of 119. You got these in a promo box, which we ended up getting 4 of. So the box came with a ton of alternate art promos. And, you know, I'm very happy I bought them when they came out because those cards are stupid expensive now. Beautiful card. I much prefer this to the art in the set. And finally, Aegis/EX. Again, we will take a look at the bottom. 65A out of 119. So this is just an upgrade on the half art Aegis/EX from the set. I love this art as well, of course. XY era full arts are just really, really cool to me. So I wanted to make sure it stayed with its friends in this set. All right, so you've survived 18.5 minutes going over the main set, but we still have the reverses to do. And the reverses are where we can really start to enjoy the actual art on the otherwise non-fancy cards. So many people are looking for the really fancy stuff. They kind of look past all the smaller cards, but there's some really amazing art that you can find here in the reverses. So let's just take a relatively quick look through. Look at this Totodile. Beautiful. That art is fantastic. Anyone who likes cute Pokemon would very gladly add this to their binder. You know, not everyone, but you know, most people who like cute cards would add this to their binder. But it's very easily overshadowed by the big, shiny, fancy, expensive stuff. But I take a moment to appreciate all of the commons, uncommons, and non-holo rares as we get them. We're back to the Night March Joltik here. We keep on going, not slowing down too much. Reverse Crobat looks way better than the normal non-holo Crobat, in my opinion. You know, the normal holo pattern feels a little weird. Although for specifically that one, there's a deck-exclusive Cosmos Holo that looks even better than both of those. All right, so we'll keep on going and just make sure we have all of the reverses to make this master set a master set. Diggersby, though. Anyone remember that? All right, moving along into the trainers. Lysander's Trump Card again, Robo Substitute, VS Seeker, one of the most important trainers at the time, and now it's worth nothing because it's no longer playable. And the last page has the last 3 cards, Zerosic and 2 special energies. So that's the end of the XY Phantom Forces Master Set. What cards from this set are your favorite? Are you a giant Gengar fan? Are you an Electric fan? Are you a Lysander fan? I'm a Lysander fan, although I like Guzma better. Very cool stuff in this set. Very cool stuff in this era. So, let me know what your favorite cards were and what sets you'd like to see featured in an upcoming video. We're doing Wishlist Wednesdays, where we show off a set that we're only missing a couple of cards from. We try to do about 12 cards as the cutoff, so you won't see sets that we're missing more than 12, really. And we do Master Set Mondays, like this video, where we have the entire set and we show off the entire thing. And then sometimes we do a video called Featured Friday, where we take a specific subset of cards, either intentional or unintentional subset of cards, compile them all into a binder, because we can basically make every single subset of cards that people might want to see. So the last one we did was an artist spotlight on Tomokazu Kamiya. Absolutely love his primitivist art style. Very, very cool. But what kind of card would you like to see featured in a Featured Friday? Are you a Venomoth fan and you want to see every single English Venomoth? Are you a Steel-type Pokemon fan? Are you a Black-White Full Arts fan? Do you want to see all Full Art trainers? That kind of thing. Any subset of the Pokemon TCG that you want to see, just let us know in the comments down below, and we will consider for a future Featured Friday. So, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.